This video is going to be a response to comments I receive from my video, Men Are Smarter Than Women, Deal With It. I'm just getting really tired of answering the same kind of question, both in that video and other videos which also deal with the sexual dimorphic intelligence differences between men and women. Namely, I get a lot of responses about women's supposed social intelligence or emotional intelligence or these other kinds of intelligence that just can't be measured with IQ tests. Now, effectively, what the commentators are saying is that because women can manipulate men, that they are more intelligent than men, where the fact that men are manipulated by women and that women can secretly control men through the powers of their pussies, that this proves that men are dumb and women are smarter. Now, I'm going to demonstrably prove that manipulation does not equal greater intelligence, so just to kind of change the context from a man and a woman to a parent and a child. According to the Daily Mail, 60% of parents give into their children and buy them the latest trends as soon as they ask for them. According to Forbes, 59% of parents provide financial support to their adult children who are no longer in school. And according to Bloomberg Business, 31% of adult millennials receive regular financial support, with 20% still living at home rent-free. Are children smarter than their parents because they've manipulated them into supporting them? I get that this isn't a factor of intelligence but love. Parents love their children and they're willing to sacrifice for them, maybe even allow themselves to be manipulated by them in order to make them happy. However, what about doctors? Doctors don't love you, they have no reason to allow themselves to be manipulated by you, and are almost certainly smarter than you. And yet, according to the New York Times, doctors given to parents who wish to delay vaccinating their children in order to, quote, avoid losing them as patients. The survey polled 534 primary care physicians in 2012. 1/3 said they defer to the parents often or always, with another third saying that they only give in sometimes. So now let's look at how women manipulate men. Women accomplish manipulation in two ways: nagging and sex. Let's look at both of these and see if either one is accomplished through equal or greater intelligence than a man. First, let's look at nagging. Nagging is defined as consistently harassing someone to do something. Women have a stereotype of being the nags in a relationship, and it's quite easy to understand why. If the man needs something done, he does it. When the woman needs something done, she needs to get the man to do it, hence she must nag him until he does it. However, according to the Wall Street Journal, nagging can be as bad for a relationship as adultery or financial problems. So we understand why women nag, but why does it work? Is it because the man is stupid and the woman more intelligent? According to a study that looked at managerial effectiveness, it found that redundant communication, i.e. nagging, was very effective for managers that lacked formal power. This means that in cases where a party can't force you to do what they want, they'll annoy you into doing what they want. It's a common saying that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, but as demonstrated within several contexts, the ability to nag is not an indication of intelligence. If a child's tantrum is not proof of greater intelligence, why would a woman's nagging be proof of greater intelligence? The fact that the majority of parents give in to their children and doctors give in to uninformed patients doesn't mean that the children are smarter than their parents or that the patients are smarter than the doctors. Deference is not an indication of inferior intelligence. It simply isn't. Now let's move on to sex. It's well known that men have a higher sex drive than women, but studies have determined that the male sex drive is at least twice as strong depending on age, and maybe as much as 3 times as strong. Why is this important? Because this gives women leverage. Due to the man's increased sex drive, he values sex much more than the woman, and this increased demand allows her to place a higher price on it. The woman has the sex the man wants, and the man is willing to pay a premium on that sex in the form of resources, utility, or other forms of exchange. Does this mean men are stupid? No, this is not a factor of intelligence but self-control. Women naturally have more self-control in regards to sex because of their lower sex drive. However, let's look at an example where the factors of desire and self-control is equal across the genders, and see which gender has more self-control in a general sense and not specifically within the context of the sex drive. Let's compare obesity rates, which denote a lack of self-control on the part of both men and women. According to the International Business Times, women are more likely to be obese than men who are both middle income or poor across all racial groups, but are less likely to be obese than men if they are both rich. Now, what does this tell us other than rich men prefer non-obese women? Interestingly, it also shows that there is no correlation between income and obesity when it comes to men. Men are about as likely to be obese regardless of income. And while this study doesn't measure it, it's generally true that those who achieve more in life financially tend to be more intelligent. Thus, it can be reasonably concluded that there is no direct link between intelligence and obesity, and thus between intelligence and self-control. There are simply two separate things. However, even if self-control was indicative of higher intelligence, women have lower self-control than men outside of the sex drive. Now, a Yale University study found that there was a neural link between intelligence and self-control related to the area of the brain known as the anterior prefrontal cortex, which is one of the last brain structures to fully mature. Due to sexual dimorphism, males have a 10% larger cranial capacity than women. This isn't simply due to men being larger than women, but the actual sexual dimorphism of the skull, which gives men more cranial capacity even if the man and the woman are the same height. You may have heard that women have a larger prefrontal cortex than men, but that is a lie. In order to achieve this, researchers quote correct for cranial capacity, thus compensating for the 10% difference between males and females, and even then, the male brain is still impressive related to the female brain outside of the frontal lobe. However, it's a non sequitur because one can't correct for size and then compare size objectively. For example, an ant can lift several times its own weight, which is very impressive when compared to humans, wherein it's estimated that far less than half of men can bench their own body weight. However, if I were to ask you who could lift more weight, an ant or a man, you would be stupid to declare the ant to be the winner. Sure, if you correct for size and weight, the ant wins, but objectively an ant can never lift as much as an average man. It is the same with men and women. While correcting for cranial capacity may be useful for research, it is important to acknowledge that sexual dimorphism affects the skull and brain as well as many other aspects of the human body. So even if we conclude that there's somehow a link between intelligence and self-control, men still win. Men have larger brains, which result in both higher IQs and greater self-control outside of the sex drive. However, the male sex drive is several times stronger in men than women, allowing women to manipulate men using said sex drive. This is in no way an indication of intelligence though, but gender. If a man and a woman were to hypothetically switch bodies, the woman would instantly lose all her power to manipulate men. These abilities are not a factor of her brain whatsoever, but her body, specifically her female body that men want to put their penis inside of. For further confirmation of this, notice how women become effectively invisible not only to men, but to society once they turn 50. If they were these highly intelligent master manipulators, where do all their powers go once they're no longer fertile? In a Salon article called Women Over 50 Are Invisible, it goes into the realization women face when they hit the wall. Their beauty fades and they lose all their much-touted powers of manipulation and social intelligence. This proves beyond doubt that so-called social intelligence is not intelligence at all. It's merely female deference, specifically young, attractive female deference. It has as much to do with intelligence as intelligence has to do with the size of a man's dick. Here's the bottom line. Men are smarter than women. Period. Deal with it. Women can manipulate men using nagging and sex until the point where the man is tired of her shit or doesn't find her attractive anymore. That's not intelligence, that's just being a woman. A woman's ability to manipulate her so-called social intelligence is directly proportional to her youth and beauty. When those fade, her social intelligence goes as well. The problem is you can't just slap the word intelligence onto something and call it intelligence. Social intelligence is bullshit, and so is emotional intelligence. The result is that women go around thinking that they're equal to men because of these new types of intelligence that do nothing but make stupid people feel better. They're like a participation trophy. It just goes to show that women are basically retarded children. They have to be shielded from reality, the reality of sexual dimorphism, and given their own watered-down brand of intelligence so that the real world doesn't hurt their self-esteem. The worst part is that these lies don't even benefit women. It gives them a false perspective where they think the world works in contrast to reality. Look at all these career women who are desperately trying to find husbands in their 30s and 40s and can't because the men they're holding out for are dating women in their 20s. The women ultimately suffer by denying reality, so before you ladies leave a nasty comment assuming you've made it this far, keep in mind that I've only brought you the truth. Sometimes the truth is ugly, but someday you will be too, so you might as well accept it.